One of the greatest reasons why I love Legion is because the expansion is pretty damn versatile when it comes to how you want to gear up. In past expansions, all we had to pretty much gear up with is raiding, and not a lot of people can do that because they have work, school, family, and other stuff going on in their life that makes it kind of hard for them to actually devote some serious time into the game if they want to gear up. That's why Legion is pretty flexible in the sense of how you can gear up, because you don't have to actually raid in order to get geared. You can run Mythic dungeons and still be as geared, if not even more so, than the person who raids Mythic every week. This also means though that there are a lot of things to do in Legion, from grinding artifact power to raiding to PvP to Mythic grinding to Nightbane. There's just so many things to do to keep up with the gearing up process. Now that's really good for people who can afford to spend that much time in a game like me right now since I'm on break, but also really bad for people who have families, school, work, and other stuff, which is also me going into this upcoming semester. So this calls to question a topic that I see a lot of people actually bringing up. Do you like gearing up in Legion? So in short, my answer is yes, to an extent. At least when it comes to how many ways you can gear up. Because in this upcoming semester, I don't plan on raiding because of how many classes that I'm taking, but I can still somewhat keep up with item level by doing Mythic pluses. When this happened in Warlords, where I also stopped raiding because of school or whatever, I fell behind in item level a lot, because there was absolutely no way for me to keep up with the modern gear unless if I wanted to raid. But in Legion, that isn't the case. Mythic plus dungeons offer a lot to the game. It's an alternative way for people to gear up, and for some, it's even a better way for them to get gear because they need the gear from Mythic dungeons, and you know, maybe the gear from Emerald Nightmare isn't as good as some of the gear that they could get from Mythic dungeons. But it's not all entirely good when it comes to this topic, because of course the question of do you like gearing up in Legion is brought up for a reason, and that reason being is that there are of course negative aspects that come into play when it comes to this topic, and here's one of those aspects: RNG. A lot of people hate RNG in this expansion because, I won't lie, it's a huge part in the gearing up process. It's really big. Well, I mean, it's always been big, but it's pretty out of control at this point, and incoming the penis jokes from you guys, it finally hit me, but you know, I don't really care. I'm too lazy to re-record this. But going back to the subject, on my warrior, I can do a Mythic 10 and receive, you know, a piece of 865 loot. But on my monk, and this is a true story, I did a world quest my second day of hitting 110, and I got a Titan Forge piece upgraded to 875 item level. That, in my opinion, is broken as fuck, and a lot of people hate this type of RNG because for the longest time, the only RNG that they have been used to seeing in game was just simply if an item they wanted would actually drop from a boss or not. And that is appropriate. But now, they have to worry about if a piece of loot will drop from a boss or not, and if it will Titan Forge 15 or more item levels with a gem socket and completely override the gear from Heroic and possibly Mythic EN. This has pissed off a lot of people since they grind out high level Mythic plus dungeons constantly trying to get, you know, say for example their best in slot ring, only to see someone else with a Mythic plus level 3 version of that ring, with that ring being better than their own version, despite coming from a lower difficulty, and just simply because it is Titan Forged to like 880 since they were molested by Lady Luck. Because of this, a lot of people have compared the game to like a slot machine, or flat out just hating the gearing up process since it's, you know, to be honest, it's kind of unfair at times. I don't think that Warforges and Titan Forges should be 100% completely removed from the system, but I definitely think that Blizzard has to include a smaller cap on the range of which the item level can be increased. There's definitely something wrong when you do a Mythic 3 and get gear that's better than that of a Mythic 8, which is obviously supposed to be more difficult in order for players to obtain better rewards. Doing a world quest that requires nothing more than me heroic throwing a rare mob while others do all the work for me, while I sit on my computer desk and gorge myself with jelly beans waiting for my loot, and seeing that that loot that I get also gets Titan Forged to 880 should not be a thing. Seeing as to how guilds spend weeks trying to kill a single mythic boss for 880 gear, or players devote hard work and time and coordination in a mythic 10, 12, 14, 15, or 16 dungeon, it's pretty ridiculous that I can just Jade Lightning a mob, AFK, and get gear equal or even better to that of a mythic 10 dungeon. Going back to how many ways you can gear up though, I love it. In WoD, there were 2 main ways to get gear. One is either you raid, or 2 is that you click a garrison mission. In Legion, you can run Karazhan, raid, or do mythic dungeons, which I think is great because it offers at least some variety when it comes to how you want to play the game and gear up, especially if you can't spend 6, 8, or 12 hours a week raiding, or if you prefer running dungeons rather than running raids. Plus, in addition to giving you more options on how you want to actually obtain gear, it also offers a lot more replayability. In the past, players wouldn't ever really run dungeons over and over again after the first raid comes out because there wouldn't really be a point, with the exception being if new dungeons were implemented in a patch like the Forge of Souls, Pit of Saron, House of Reflection Trio, and Wrath. Now though, you actually have a reason to run through a dungeon multiple times. It's a way to get gear. As for other factors like legendaries and artifact power, I'm gonna address them right now, but I'm not gonna get too much into it. So the 2 of these things, both legendaries and artifact power, makes the game, to be honest, feel like a job to many people, including myself sometimes. There are some days where you just get burnt out and turned off from logging into the game since you just want one day or, you know, several days where you don't have to feel obligated to farming artifact power or from doing world quests. And if you do take a break and fall behind from the grind, that's just another reason to discourage you from wanting to actually play. I get that devs want you playing the game as much as possible, but I can't help but shake the feeling that, you know, it does feel like an endless chore. This also ties into the problem that this expansion is incredibly alt unfriendly. It's pretty hard for you to be up to date on one character and still have an alt or, you know, several alts that you can log into and you can play while having fun. Instead, when you log into your alts, you're worried about getting resources, farming artifact power, and just staying on top with everything that you have to worry about with on your main. It's not so bad when you have to play casually, but when you get into the game seriously and are in a competitive PvE or PvP guild and you're devoting a lot of time into one character and trying to balance that with an alt or, you know, several alts, it becomes tiresome and even impossible. And honestly, it's boring too. Here's an example. I am not one of those warriors who got, you know, blessed by Lady Luck with having the execute ring. So what do? I joined a bunch of Mythic Plus farming dungeons or whatever, hoping for it to drop in one of those caches in the end of a 3 chest run. So do I like doing this over and over, farming Maw souls like 100 times? Hell no. I would like to spend that time doing something else, you know, gearing an alt or whatever. But in order to do as much DPS as possible and in order to keep up with the big dick DPS guildies of mine that I raid with, I'm gonna need that ring because it's my best in slot. So what I'm trying to get at is that in addition to there being too much RNG in this expansion, there's also too much repetitive content that you feel like you are forced to do. And yes, when you log on, there are plenty of things that you can occupy yourselves with, but how many of those things are actually going to be fun? Again, a good handful of you guys watching this video down below may ask, well then why not cut back on both the farming and the artifact power and, you know, mythic dungeons? But you have to keep in mind that there are people in this game who want to play competitively, and it's for that reason why all aspects of the gearing up process have to be covered. Also, you might say, well wait, didn't you say earlier in the video that Mythic Plus Dungeons offered replayability and that's a bonus? Yeah, and I absolutely stand by that. But if it gets combined with the fact that you need to run Mythic Plus Dungeons an absurd amount of times to farm artifact power or to get a legendary, it completely gets ruled out since the value of the replayability means nothing seeing as to how it's so repetitive. So in short guys, love the variety of ways of how you can get geared, love Mythic Plus Dungeons as an alternative way of getting gear aside from raiding, however, not too happy about the RNG. These are my thoughts though guys. If you agree or disagree, please comment it down below. I know that I'm definitely not alone in this mindset. I know a few people, some friends, some of them you guys who PM me or comment on my videos who have already unsubbed from Legion because it was burning you guys out or the RNG in this expansion just ate at you guys the wrong way. But again, you know, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys had a great safe holiday season, and until next time guys, I'll see you later.